Okay, so this is video 2 because the first video, my phone rang and then the video stopped. And so I don't know if they know, I don't know if you can restart that or not. So I wouldn't have any idea how to do that. So I'm just gonna continue from where I was. I was talking about the precinct captains / committeemen and how that works. And so those committeemen know everybody's voting information and voting background and things like that. So they don't care if you don't vote, right? Then they're not going to be worried about you. So they have this list and they know everybody's address and they even know everybody of voting age in that house and everybody who's registered to vote. And so they'll go to the house and be like, we want to talk to Bill Enright because he votes and he votes regularly. I'm a college kid. My name's Grace Enright. And they're like, oh, well, you haven't registered to vote, so we don't care about you. But I mean, they wouldn't say it like that. But they're looking for the person who votes, and then they want to try to convince them, oh, you ought to vote for these candidates. And of course, once you start getting candidates elected at like the more local level, then they're also going to move up into the national levels. And so eventually you'll have name recognition with them. And so the idea is that these precinct captains or committeemen are going to go door to door and try to get people to vote for their party. When I lived in the city, there was a precinct captain in my area that would come by pretty regularly, knew that I voted, right? Nice enough guy, and I used to talk to the guy about politics and things like that. And then I had mentioned I ran for state representative when I was in Chicago. And so once he found out that I was running as a Republican, then he didn't like me anymore, but it didn't make any difference. It was really difficult to run as a Republican in the city of Chicago. Not that I was necessarily a Republican or a Democrat at the time, but it was easier to go on the Republican side at the time because the Democrat side was so hard to break into. And so at the time, I thought I might have a sliver of a chance of beating this guy who was running, but he lost in the primary, and then I lost in the general election to the woman, Sarah Feigenholz, who still holds that seat today for the last 26 years. All right, so these precinct captains and committeemen get out, knock on the doors, and get the vote out. Tell people what's happening with the elections and give them information on candidates that they otherwise wouldn't know. If you are a precinct captain or a committeeman, it can sometimes lead to like bigger things for you. Like I said, if you're a committeeman in Mike Madigan's district in Chicago, probably you've got a city job or something. And so sometimes things like that work out. Usually people are just doing it because they're interested in politics, they want to get their party elected and things like that, but not necessarily all the time. And so think of it as like these people who are going around, knocking on the door, bringing literature, and trying to convince somebody to vote. Now, of course, many people either don't answer the door or don't want to talk to the person, which is fine. But if they can reach like 10 or 15% of the people and get them to make sure that they get out to vote and vote for their party, that's all you need in an election. You don't need to have, all those other people are showing up anyway. And so if you could sway the vote by 10 or 15%, then you've got no problem whatsoever. You're going to win those elections. All right, so with that one, since we had Tara Costa Howard on the other day, she ran as a Democrat in a Republican district that's been Republican all along, right? Like there's never Democrats who are elected there. And when I ran into her at this restaurant, she was telling me she was going to run. I was like, no kidding. Wow, that's going to be a hard race. And she worked and she worked and she knocked on doors just like these precinct captains and committeemen do. And she knocked on doors all throughout the community and eventually was able to get enough community support. It also helped that it was a midterm election in 2018. Donald Trump's, popularity was waning in some ways, and they wanted to try to get more women elected. And so, if you're running as a female in 2018, that certainly helped. And so, I think it's probably going to carry over into this election too. Especially like I saw in the newspaper today that women are being more adversely affected by this economic slowdown than men, especially because women have more concerns over childcare, and so they're losing jobs at a faster pace. And so I wouldn't be surprised if there's like a bigger turnout again this time for women. All right, so that's how the precincts work. They're divided up like within even Glen Ellen and Wheaton, Milton Township, there'll be like 100 or 150 precincts. There'll be maybe 200 households in it, and then their job is, as committeemen, as a Democrat or Republican, to get out to those houses and try to get people to vote. Okay, let's see. I made some other notes of things that I wanted to talk about. Make sure to do the midterm this week. If you haven't handed in your term paper, go ahead and do that. Do your presentation, and then submit that by July 15th. Check the discussion board and let us know when your birthday is. We're gonna local government paper. I know there's so much of this stuff going on. And then I'm going to release several, I'm gonna finish up all the modules like early next week so that you've got everything, including like the media. We've got to cover economic policy and foreign policy. And so I'm gonna get all those things released early on next week so you have that and ready to go for the final exam, which will probably be not a lot of questions, maybe 30 or 40 questions, but it will come from the second half material. And so anything that we covered after the midterm, then that will be on the final exam. Okay, have a great day.